This episode of HBCU Pulse Radio is sponsored by Cricket Wireless. What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and the host of HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for another special edition of the show. On today, we are talking about week 2 of HBCU football, and we're going to preview week 3. I got Arielle in the building. Listen, Arielle, our picks are looking really good. We might know something. Like I said last week, we might know something.
I was looking at the rundown that we had, and I was like, "Not we tied this week." I mean, your season is looking better than mine. If we talking basketball, we talk about games since we're finna be going all the way into the Celebration Bowl. You got a little better record right now. You looking real clean, but I'm coming for you. But we might know some football, especially after last week. Some of the teams over my head. I'm very surprised that we look the way that we do.
Let's go and get started. So, Arielle, your game of the week was Elon versus North Carolina Central, and I'm not even gonna lie, that game did not look good. It seemed as if North Carolina Central desperately needed Davius Richard out there, or Elon just got better. I don't know. I'm gonna leave that assessment to you. So, what do you think about this game between Elon and North Carolina Central? Well, they lost by a pretty demonstrative total.
Yeah, it seemed like Elon actually flipped places with Central, because usually we will see Central one having that kind of score. They lost 41-19. A complete blowout in that sense. But also they switched places because North Carolina Central is usually the team that is leading into halftime and sometimes leading into the third quarter. We didn't see Central score until the third quarter, and they kind of left it at that. We thought we almost had a comeback when they were 24-17, but then Elon just kind of took it over. I'm not mad. Listening to Trey Oliver, the one thing that they said that they really wanted to do, listen to his press conference last week, is they wanted to tighten up the tackles, get really close up on the blocks, learning how to just hold those players and making sure that Walker Harris has time. That did not happen at all. They couldn't create holes for their running backs. Defenders were pushing off the blocks really quickly. They were getting through the box that Harris was sitting in. And honestly, Matthew Downing and I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing his mispronouncing his name, but he deserves all the praise because those two had kinetic energy going down the field, scoring 2 out of 4 of those touchdowns that Downing was throwing down the field. And it was just something that the defense for Central was just lacking. And right now, they are starting over. You don't have your Davius Richards. You don't have your MEAC Player of the Year center. You have some missing defensive linemen that were just, they were holding it down for Central. So now that you have to rebuild and that you're looking for people that are going to step up, to honestly looking at Jamari Taylor and you're looking at Davis, they seem great. You still have weapons on your team, but they're young. And Jamari Taylor was locked up in that first half and in that third quarter. So they had to switch and went to Chris Mosley, who was also their kick returner and actually returning down the field between the 20 and the 40-yard line. So he was doing what he was supposed to do. But they just couldn't open that air game. Wideouts were covered, drop passes. And what we ultimately saw this weekend was Walker Harris isn't Davius Richard. He still hasn't developed that field football intelligence where, hey, I'm about to be collapsed on. I'm about to get sacked. I need to hurry up and make a really, really quick move, and I need to get out of this pocket. He can run, but he's not smart enough to know when to run as a quarterback. And I think most of those sacks and most of the pocket collapsing is what caused them to ultimately win the game. Of course, they had some offsides sometimes, and then you had a couple of false starts, and one of the times they ran out the clock and had a delay of game. Those things are going to happen, especially when you're playing these FCS teams like Elon and you're playing teams that have better facilities, better not better coaches, but just players that are a little bit more talented. But also, Elon is working with a team that has been there for 2 or 3 years. They haven't lost many players. They have grown into their size. They are bigger. They are faster. They're pretty strong. So, this team, now that they're playing, it should have been a closer game. And if we had Davius Richards, it would have been a closer game, maybe a winnable game because they have beaten them like they beaten them last year. But this just proved too much for Walker Harris. And it comes down to a point where you're looking at my top three teams, which are Central, South Carolina State is making a comeback. And you're looking at Howard. Right now, they're all tied for first in the MEAC. And on this weekend, only Norfolk and Howard, and I also want to say South Carolina State, won on the road games. And they're not in conference. So you're looking at those three teams and you're like, hey, if they're winning on the road, if they're winning some of these Division One schools, what is Central going to do, who is known to beat them early and known to have these create these big deficits of those winning margins? This is not the same Central team that we have looked at for the past 2 years. I wouldn't say that we should necessarily be freaking out right now. This is they're trying to get their stance. Walker Harris is a different quarterback, but he's not a bad quarterback. He actually has some really good stats: 69-24, 181 yards, had 3 interceptions, not realizing what he's looking at downfield. But I don't put that on him of not being a great player. It's just Elon outplayed them essentially. So looking at that, he's just going to have to understand and know where he fits best. And right now, he's more of a passing quarterback. I'm a pass it to Jamari Taylor. I'm a pass it to Chris Mosley. Down the field, he can do, but you have to me, he needs to work on that in those easier games. Hopefully, those easier games come when you play Morgan State and when you play Norfolk State, who are kind of building defensively, but you have that defense to go against them. They don't have the weapons like you offensively that you have. So he can work on that passing game. But during Elon taking to the air when that running game was just shut down, was just not the smart thing for him. And they ultimately end up losing. Trey Oliver is just going to have to figure out what is comfortable for his quarterback and what he's good at and what he's not good at. And we're just going to have to go back to the drawing board and learn how to hold the block. Do not open holes for the team that's playing against you. And let's clean it up a little bit better so when we come into next week, we kind of look like the Central from last year. Not saying you have to build up to that momentum or that place, but you need to look better than what you did against Elon. Because even though they are a team that is full of people that have been nobody really they haven't really lost anybody. So even though that team was full of veterans, I feel like this should have been a closer game. And now we're seeing the strengths and weaknesses of Walker Harris and what we might need to do to have a win next week. And this was your home field opener. Nobody likes losing at home. The Falcons lost at home this weekend over a very winnable game. You know, I had to throw that in there. But you have other games, you have other home games. I know they're not going to lose some of them the rest of this season, but it's just looking a little shaky for Central and where they stand on their identity, especially after having those 2 big years of momentum building teams, especially losing Davius Richard. It's just starting to look a little worrisome for Trey Oliver and his team.
Hey, listen, I totally feel it. Listen, I want to say this first. The Falcons lost to a team that didn't score one offensive touchdown. That is egregious. And it was very mad. And this is an NFL show. I wanted to just say that I feel you. I watched that game because guess what? I don't got the money for Sunday ticket right now, so I had no choice. So listen, I watched that game. It's local, okay? I watched that game on Fox, and that was very maddening. But I'll just say this about North Carolina Central. When it comes to replacing greatness, man, like Davius Richard arguably might be one of the best HBCU quarterbacks we've ever seen. Like his dual threat ability, his size, his frame, and his ability to run when it comes down to it. I honestly believe he's probably one of the best HBCU quarterbacks we've ever seen. And it's going to be tough replacing that. And you wonder if they're going to dominate the MEAC in the same way that they did with Davius Richard. So I wouldn't, for me, I'm not going to be too alarmed because I don't know if I got to look and see if I picked Elon, but I sort of expected, I think I picked North Carolina Central, but I expected there to be probably a drop off when it comes to Davius Richard not being there anymore. And then Walker Harris then coming into that role and becoming the starting quarterback. But I ultimately have faith in Trey Oliver that he's going to figure it out. But I just think that he's dealing with a MEAC that is not going to be as easy as it has been the past couple of years. You have really good coaches in there. You have Chennisberry that replaced Buddy Pugh, and they had their problems, but they still look good. So I think it's going to be really interesting in the MEAC because it looked like after that first game, although there were some snafus when it came down to it, it's not North Carolina Central is going to really be that team that was going to beat Elon, and then they're going to move into that North Carolina game. It's going to be what it's going to be. And then they're going to go to the MEAC, and they're going to wreck shop. But I don't know if that necessarily happens because we got to remember, too, Morgan State played Davius Richard in North Carolina Central really well in that Thursday game. Almost beat them. And Howard actually did beat them. So we don't know. We got to see what happens there.
I mean, that was one of their losses 2 years ago. And then they, unfortunately, what caused them not to go back to the Celebration Bowl last year was against Howard. So I'm not saying that they're invincible. They should be, the way that Trey Oliver has recruited and how he mostly has a veteran team when it comes to his offense. His defense is just a little young, but what I do see for next week when they do play UNC, I don't see this game going as Elon did, just because I know they're going to work with Harris and this quarterback room, and they're going to be like, hey, you need to sit down. It's not really a play thing. You just have to figure out what works best for you and what you need to do when you come into those tight situations when your pocket is collapsing. You were either going to take off because you can't keep taking these sacks and taking these negative yards, and then you're not converting on the next plays when your defense is out. They punted 10 times before scoring. You have to make a decision whether you are going to run or you are going to try to get as most yards either can, even if it's 2 or if it's 3. You have to make those quick decisions. Those quick decisions are going to be the deal breaker, and where they have a close game with USC, or if they're going to have their first out of conference win. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for being down 24-0. We're not looking for starting under. We're not looking for not scoring touchdowns or at least close games. This all depends on Walker Harris and how he plays next week. Jamari Taylor is going to show up to play, and he's going to look how he looked in their first game. Mosley, luckily you have him as a kick returner, and he's a really great kick returner. So you're going to start off most of your plays at a great field advantage. But in this time is Walker Harris's time, and for Trey Oliver to sit down, figure out what's best for your quarterback. It's not time to replace him. He's not terrible. He's adequate. He's your basic quarterback, and not by basic as in like, but like basic, like he could throw, he can run, he can do what you want. He just has to develop that kind of mentality, a Davius Richard mentality. Might have to call the man, be like, hey, when do you know when to put these instincts to the ground, and I got to do whatever it is to save my team. I'm not scared of them going to UNC next week, but I also need them to figure out what's going on in this locker room so that way we can have a better game. Because if you can't figure out against UNC, then South Carolina State may end up toppling you, and this is not going to be good.
Listen, you said that like Davis Richard and Walker should talk. I mean, listen, FaceTime. I mean, listen, like you don't gotta be a regular phone call. Just FaceTime at this point. I mean, I'm pretty sure they both got iPhones. But what I'll say is that listen, the goal, in my opinion, for North Carolina Central next week is to not lose by 70. Okay, that's the only goal. If they don't lose by 70, I'm perfectly fine with it because they're not beating North Carolina. They're not. They're not. If Davis Richard was there, like if this was last year's team and they played North Carolina almost like our FAMU, FAMU was undermanned, and that score against that FAMU against North Carolina in 2022, we know that wasn't indicative of what actually happened because Jeremy Musa looked really good. There were a couple other players that looked good. They were moving the ball against North Carolina. I just don't think that this team is going to be the one that beats the FBS team. I could be wrong. I'd be open to being wrong because you know that I want that, but just don't lose by 70. And like you got players that are losing that like you have teams that are losing by 70 and the opposing players are waving at the cheerleaders. Don't have that happen. Okay. Don't get embarrassed out there. Don't go viral. Because if you go viral, North Carolina Central, I gotta write about it. Okay. I need views. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't want to do this. You know, don't make me do this, North Carolina Central. Okay. Don't lose by 70. Lose respectable. 45-10, okay? 35-7. All right, be respectable. Put up a fight. Okay, that's all I'm saying. All I'm saying.
Listen, I don't know what's worse, losing respectfully or the way A&T played against Winston. Happy for the win, but that an overtime win against Winston-Salem is ridiculous.
They gonna learn about Division II football. You know, Aria, you know, but I need the rest of the Aggies to know. And that's not even my conference. That's the CIAA. And they talking crazy about the SIAC. People better find out, okay? Not sure how the game of the year against Winston-Salem for y'all the game on
Game
full force.
Game of the year. Like, listen, besides having a bad hair day, had to rep A&T because we finally won a game. But an overtime game against Winston-Salem. A&T, don't be embarrassing me out here. This is crazy. Like, I've been depressed. This football weekend was not great for me. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, let me raise your spirits. I'm about to talk about Alabama State and Miles College, okay? Because listen, all right. I admit when I'm wrong, okay? I was wrong about who was going to win this game. We're both wrong. We both chose Miles because Miles won last year, and we weren't very confident in what Eddie Robinson Jr. was going to do as far as his quarterback situation. They won 24-3. I watched the game. Miles had a lot of self-inflicted wounds, but it was a lot of the same old from Alabama State. They finished the game with 88 passing yards, only 12 attempts, and they rushed the ball 41 times. And they had 191 yards to Quan Casey, 13 carries, 137 yards, 1 touchdown. They were able to stop Miles College from running the ball. They only had 48 yards, no touchdowns, 28 carries. But the passing game for my guy, Cam Ivory, 168 yards. He had 2 interceptions, but 168 yards. That's something to think about, okay? That's something to think about in a league with Daniel Richardson in the SWAC. That's something to think about in a league with Mouse Crawley. You know what I'm saying? That's something to think about in a league where I know Jacoby and Morgan, the ULM game, he struggled, and against Lane, they did better. But Jacoby and Morgan at Jackson State, sort of rough. I'm just saying. Like, I'm still not sold on Alabama State, and they made me look foolish. I don't like being wrong. They made me look foolish by saying that the Alabama State fans need to book a hotel in Atlanta for Christmas because it's going to be lit. It's going to be the Celebration Bowl. They ain't going nowhere near Atlanta, like I said, unless they buy a ticket to the Celebration Bowl. And even then, it ain't going to be for you. It's going to be other teams there, and you just there enjoying the experience, okay? Because because you cannot do this. You cannot do this in 2024. Like, y'all are not North Dakota State. North Dakota State beat down Tennessee State, and they run that ball. They can pass. Like, you got North Dakota State's quarterback. He's such an adept runner. He's great at getting out of situations and making plays. You had a quarterback that can do that, probably even better than North Dakota State's quarterback. And yes, I said it, but he's injured. He's out for the season. He's getting surgery. Are we for real here? And then O'Brien, and shout out to him, he got injured. So he didn't even play. I just think there's a lot of bad decision making. And the thing about it is I sort of wanted Miles to win to put some heat on Eddie Robinson Jr. in Alabama State. Because if they lost to Miles, it was going to be I'm telling you, like, things would have changed. There would have been some calls. There would have been some donors that would have called. He needed to throw the ball more. But see, now they won, so now people can't say nothing until they start losing in the SWAC. They're not going to the Celebration Bowl. If they go to the Celebration Bowl, I am fine with being wrong. I am fine with it. But you're not going to the Celebration Bowl throwing for 88 yards. You're not going to the Celebration Bowl only scoring 24 points on Miles College when their quarterback threw 2 interceptions. Cam Ivory threw two interceptions. You're not doing that.
I've been saying this about Eddie Robinson too. My favorite saying, he is his own Achilles heel. I don't really think it's his team. Is his team the best? No, but his decision making and kind of his self-centered views of I have to do this because I want to be every other team. I want to prove myself in the SWAC is literally injuring his team and putting him in a position where you can't even place in the SWAC right now. You're down to your 3rd and your 4th string, which you played both of them in this game and still only won 3-24? Mm-hmm. Like, that team that played this weekend couldn't even beat week 1. you would have been closer playing against Central, but you couldn't even beat them in week 1. So you're doing all these changes. You have injured players. This season is not looking any better. Alabama State they're not looking like, oh, I'm scared of this team, because personally, to me, I didn't think they were going to go far anyway. But now you're looking at, to me, just the football program as a whole. If I have a coach that doesn't know what he's doing, or most of his intentions are just trying to prove everything wrong, this can go south really, really bad. And just because a team wins the game doesn't mean the inner workings of their program or the people that leaded them look good. Because this is giving South Carolina State the year before Buddy Pugh put in his pink slip to retire. It's looking very sloppy. And they're going to have to clean up their act, or somebody's about to get left behind next year.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, before we move on, I think Alabama State's going to have an amazing Christmas, boy. They ain't have a lot to do. They not have a lot to do for. I'm telling you. That week before Christmas, listen, you got a lot of time, okay? So I'll tell you that much, all right? Cricket with this speedy 5G network reminds you HBCUs are all about networking, and there's no better way to network than on Cricket Wireless. Maybe that's why people who come to Cricket stay with Cricket. Cricket 5G requires compatible devices and is not available everywhere. Discount varies per line. Additional fees, usage, and restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details. But let's talk about our games of the week for this week. So, Aria, what is your game of the week for week 3?
You know what? There were some actually really good games. I was very, very tempted in the MEAC because, we over here, we got Morehouse and Howard. Even though I know that's the easy game, I support Morehouse with all my heart. I really do. And I thought this Hampton and Norfolk State game, it could have been something. They've had some thrillers going in there, but ultimately, I took South Carolina State and Georgia Southern just because this is going to be the running back battle that I have been waiting for. If people don't know, I'm on the other side of Randall. I think offense wins games. Yes, I know your defense put up stops. They can force incorrect passes, incorrect runs. They can sack. They can do all that stuff. But to me, the defense can do all they want, but the defense isn't scoring. So offense wins games to me, and I love a good backfield. And we are about to see two of the greatest backfields of all time to me, because South Carolina State has a running back room. But let's go ahead and we talk about Georgia Southern. They have their running back, Jalen White. This man is huge, 6'1", 220. The one thing he's known for is being physical. He will drag you, and he'll drag you all the way to that end zone. So I'm excited to see who he is. He's really reliable on those third or fourth downs. He will punch right through you. And I think that's somewhat of a shaky area when it comes to South Carolina State, because they are really good getting down the field, but fourth downs have always been their Achilles heel. They always sucked at it. They can never convert, especially when it means the most. So I hope Chennis Berry has worked on that, coming from a Division II college, which is really, really good at fourth and ones, at fourth downs, and that knows how to convert. So he might have figured that out. But you also have to look at South Carolina State side, who has DeAndre Duhart. This man is quick, and he knows how to form a hole. And I love that about that man. And then you also pair him with Kazarius Adams, and those two together can be scary. And just seeing what they've done on the run these past 2 weekends, I'm excited to see what they do. And then also, South Carolina has a chance to beat another team and probably put themselves on top. So I really think this is the game to watch, especially when it comes to the offense. I think they're going to be battling out, and this could be a close game. But if I had to make my pick right now, I think South Carolina State might take this win. I'm going with them.
I feel it. I feel it.
What you mean? What you mean? Randall.
Listen, I'm tired of my HBCUs letting me down against these FBS opponents. And Georgia Southern was once FCS not that long ago. Okay, so Tennessee State did beat them actually last year, but we're 1-1 against Boise State. They lost 45-56. And I know the box scores can be deceiving sometimes. That might not have been as close of a game as this box score might have indicated. I did not watch that game. They won against Nevada 20-17. I don't know really what I can necessarily do with that. But I think they beat South Carolina State. I'm sorry. And I am, you have no idea how happy I was for Chennis Berry to have won against the Citadel, because a lot of people this year, this past offseason, a lot of people really played with his name. They were saying crazy stuff about Chennis Berry, and we talked about this when we were talking about the playoffs, is that people were basing their whole entire view of Chennis Berry on, well, he couldn't win in the playoffs. And people are telling me that he can't coach. Guess what? Oh, he can only beat HBCU teams. The Citadel not an HBCU. And he beat them. He beat them, and I watched it. Oh, I didn't know the score. Oh, because the scoreboard wasn't on there, because ESPN Plus didn't have the scoreboard up. But guess what? I saw them touchdowns. And guess what? I saw DeAndre Duhart from my hometown of Macon, Georgia. Like you said, Arielle, he from my hometown of Macon, Georgia. Running through there. Eric Phoenix making it happen. So I'm happy for Chennis Berry. Georgia Southern wins this game. It's okay.
We just started early. Like usually we start later when we start dividing, but you already created this line. Chennis Berry, hear me out, man. When, first of all, birthday's coming up. Win this for me. This is a birthday gift to me. Also, prove Randall wrong.
We got Jackson State and Southern. Listen, Southern looks terrible right now on offense. I'm sorry. Listen, I know I'll wax poetic about, oh, I love these HBCUs. I really do. I honestly really do. I saw Savannah State. They looked amazing in that first half against Southern. Do not look at that final score, because that final score is deceiving. Southern's offense looked terrible. The same school that you saw against McNeese, where both of them look horrible, that is the same Southern University offense that is there now. Jackson State is going to beat Southern so badly. Honestly, I'm not trying to engage in hyperbole. If it's a close game, I'll take it. But Jackson State, they played Lane on last week. They won 58-7. They played ULM. They should have beaten ULM. But the way that they're going to do Southern, Arielle, I'm sorry. It's going to be bad. I don't know if Southern scores. They got to do something with that offense. That offense looks a mess. And Jackson State, they know that their quarterback pretty much is Jacobian Morgan. They have their offense. They just won a huge game against Lane. They're going to come into this game energized, and then this is their rival. A lot of folks don't talk about the fact that Southern and Jackson State might have the most heated rivalry in HBCU football. They have a historic rivalry that they have, and they do not play. They call it Hate Southern Week, Hate J-State Week. They do not play when it comes to this game. And I'm going to tell you what Jackson State is going to come to play. They won last year with TC Taylor, and that was probably a better Southern team. I just think Eric Dooley wasn't the right coach for them, but I think Jackson State's going to beat them. If Southern wins, listen, I'll take my L. But I'm going off of what I saw. I'm not saying Jackson State is just this great juggernaut, but go and tell me that that team that was in the first half that couldn't score on a team that was projected to be middle of the pack in the SIC. I think Jackson State wins this game.
Personally, both of these teams have seen their struggles in the first 2 weeks. Jackson State offensively is better, but they had their mistakes, notable technicalities when it comes to the false starts and just trying to do things in a clean way. Jackson State is just not as clean as they used to be, but they can still play. Southern has had their problems, even though this last weekend they beat Savannah State 42-10. It was a struggle to even get to that momentum. So you can't have struggles in the beginning against Jackson State, because one thing Jackson State is going to do that we have picked up on is they're going to take your mistakes and they're going to use them to score. They are an interception heavy team. They will put pressure on you and that quarterback, and they will force mistakes that they ultimately can make on the other side. The difference between them and Southern and making mistakes is they're not going to repeat them throughout the game or repeat them twice. You'll get them once. You trick me once, but you cannot trick me again. You cannot trick me. And that's what Jackson State is going to do with Southern. So I'm with you. Jackson State is definitely winning. And if they lose this, we have some things to talk about. But I'm not putting it up to Southern just to beat this team. They're still good. They have their stuff to work out. Every SWAC team does. Besides FAMU, I think FAMU is FAMU. They're going to be good regardless of what's going on. But Jackson State is not out this game, and they're still contenders to try to reach the Celebration Bowl if I don't think they can, but if they can get past FAMU. So Southern, all power to you. Have a great time at this rivalry week. But yeah, it's not happening. It's not happening.
But we might be onto something because we were both 15-5 in the 20 games that we predicted on last week. I was wrong on Elon versus North Carolina Central, Mal versus Alabama State, Virginia State versus Norfolk State, Virginia Union versus Hampton, and I was wrong on Mercer versus Bethune-Cookman. Like literally, like all Bethune-Cookman got was a safety. My God, that's all they got. Like, listen, Alabama gonna get me though. Like Alabama playing Mercer is gonna be ugly for them. So listen, I might be Alabama fan for that week. All right, we'll see about that. But Arielle, like you were 15-5. We were both wrong on Elon, North Carolina Central, Miles, Alabama State, Virginia State, Norfolk. But Morgan State, Towson, you picked Morgan State, and Texas Southern Rice, you picked Texas Southern. So we literally were 15-5, even though we we delineated on two. We ended up in the same place. I think it's the first time this has happened. All right. So I'm 28-8 out of 36 games. You were 26-10 out of 36 games. So we neck and neck right there. So we might know some. All right. So let's get into these picks for this week. So Howard versus Morehouse. What you got?
I mean, I don't even, I love Morehouse down. So excited for their homecoming week. But Howard is going to walk them like the dog. Walk them like a dog. Walk them like a dog. I'm so sorry, Morehouse. But them Tigers are going to be put right back into that cage.
Oh, my God.
Stay on the podium, Morehouse. Stay giving us our civil rights leaders and our doctors and everything that y'all are good for. Just not on the football field. I'm so sorry. Just not.
My God. My God. Listen. Like Howard's gonna win this game. Howard's gonna definitely win this game. And that's the HBCU NY class. It's gonna be in New York. So I'm pretty sure that's gonna be an amazing festivity. I'm super excited for folks that are gonna be going there, making a lot of memories. Hampton versus Norfolk State. Who you got here?
I'm actually a little shaky on this one. The Spartans aren't looking too bad, and Hampton has given me some really quick scares, just a little bit. I'm so scared because I kind of want a perfect week too, and I feel like I have one. I definitely feel like I have one. I'm scared. This is scary. I'm going to say Hampton.
I'm gonna say Norfolk because I don't like what I saw. I don't like what I saw these past 2 weeks because the Division II pride aside, right? If we look at it from a football standpoint, even though they did beat Virginia Union was in that game throughout that game. And then Morgan State was doing the same thing with their heavy run attack. If Hampton cannot get that figured out, and you have those stable of running backs for Dawson Owens and Norfolk State that are coming in there, I'm telling you, it's going to look real different. And I think Dawson Owens is going to get a win, and people are going to start looking at him a little bit differently. So I think that Norfolk State is going to win this one. But
see, that's what I'm saying. Scary, but Hampton might pull through for me. Scary.
Hey, listen, we'll see. Listen, we'll see. But more, okay, so Delaware State versus Wagner. So who you got here?
Why do I have to go first? Who do you got?
I got Wagner. I got Wagner. But Delaware State's been looking pretty good, actually. They look really good against Hawaii in that week 0 game, ironically. But I think that Wagner is going to get them, though. So that's what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
I personally, like, this week for the MEAC has not been a bad week. Win or lose, these teams are looking like real competition when they get into these in-conference plays come, October and November. And Delaware State, to me, they're improving. Oh gosh, why am I don't want to lose this week. I want to topple you this week. Did I topple you the first week?
No.
Dang.
No, you didn't. No, you did. You did.
For once, I think maybe we might be twice on this next pick, but I think I'm gonna be with you and go with Wagner. I don't think they have enough stamina to beat them this week.
Yeah, I agree. So Morgan State versus Ohio. Who you got here?
I mean, I got Ohio, bro. Like
Yeah.
Morgan State, I don't care what they've been doing. They've been looking good this season, but they're still on my iffy book because I've been there these past 2 seasons and they've still looked bad. So Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio for sure for me. So North Carolina Central versus UNC Chapel Hill. Now you know my pick. UNC Chapel Hill is winning this game, and I just don't want North Carolina Central to lose by 70 because I don't be arguing on social media. But a lot of folks is playing games with UAPB, and I didn't like that. I almost got out of my element and started arguing with people. I didn't, okay, because listen, it was other stuff going on that Thursday, so I didn't. But don't embarrass us. Just go out there. You're one of our best HBCU teams, and you're not going to beat them, but compete. Listen, be respectable. 35-7, 42-10. Make it where like the first half is like 14-7, like Howard and Rutgers. Scare them a little bit. So it's like they just scare the Tar Heels a little bit. Then they're gonna pull away. That's fine. You know what I'm saying? Drake May ain't walking through that door, okay? Because Drake May was doing FAMU low key, okay? He in the NFL now. But like just scare him a little bit, but just don't lose 76-3 or like 73-0. Just please. But UNC Chapel Hill is gonna win this game.
Yeah, like I said, they have, to me, it's not like the team is good, but it's just a quarterback thing. Walker Harris is going to have to figure out if he needs to pass or if he needs to run or if he needs to hand off. But he has to learn that instinct. And I think this is a good game to learn that instinct. But I'm not betting on Central to win. I would love for, that's like, how you say that's my heart pick. I'm going with UNC Chapel Hill on this one.
So Alabama State versus Samford. So I will go first here. Samford is going to win this game. I have no faith that this team, like all my faith in this team was washed away during that Orange Blossom Classic. All of my faith was washed away. Listen, like Eddie Robinson, I think he's doing a lot of amazing things, and I'm happy for him. Real talk for leading his alma mater that he played for, one of their best players, made to NFL, but he ain't beating Samford.
I mean, they just off of what's going on with them, injury list wise, injury looks bad. And if you're just looking at the injury list from Alabama State, then you can go ahead and conclude that they're definitely not winning this weekend. But if you look at it as who Samford has played this year, they played West Georgia, lost 29-38. They just played Florida. I mean, Gators are going to be Gators. So if they was playing Florida State, maybe. But thankfully they had a bye and hopefully they figure some stuff out so we don't start 0-3. But the past 2 teams haven't really, besides West Georgia, haven't really given us what Samford could really do and who they could beat this season. But to me, if I'm just thinking about Alabama State, how they're functioning right now, their coach, and we're looking at the injury list, especially how they played against Miles, a team that should have beat them. If they're coming in with that kind of energy, they're not beating Samford.
All right, so Tennessee State versus UAPB. They are going to be playing in the Southern Heritage Classic. I'll go first here. I got Tennessee State. I think that they're going to be out for vengeance after being beat down like they did, like they were beat down against North Dakota State. I think that UAPB, they still have a lot of growing to do. But yeah, it's going to be Tennessee State.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Well, you know how we feel about UAPB. We love them. I don't think they're getting past Tennessee State. I would love to see what they do this weekend. I'm hoping for a blowout, all hopes. But Tennessee State.
So Texas A&M Commerce versus Grambling. Who you got?
I was just like, all right, what's Texas A&M are we getting? But if we're looking at this team right now, they're 0-2, but just because they're 0-2 isn't indicative of who they've been playing. They played San Diego State where they got blown out. I have UC Davis is a good team. They are a great school. Defensively, they are just a powerhouse. They played Texas A&M Commerce. They lost 36-22. Grambling right now though has had their struggles, but you have Crawley as your QB, and I think that means a lot going against Texas A&M. So if I have to choose, this may be the second win of Grambling season. So I'm going with Grambling.
You know what? I'll go with Grambling too. They went 1-9 last year, and they started off 0-2, although they lost to San Diego State and UC Davis. So I'm going to choose Grambling. I think that Grambling, when it comes to Miles Crawley, if they're able to keep him upright and they're able to establish the run so Miles Crawley can sort of keep him guessing, I think that this will be a really good win for them. So I'm going to pick Grambling, man. Okay. So listen, Western Michigan versus Bethune-Cookman, they lost 33-2 to Mercer. Western Michigan, that is it for my analysis. What you got, Arielle?
They're not winning this game, so I'm with Western Michigan.
Yeah. I'm not picking Bethune-Cookman ever again. Bethune-Cookman could play the local YMCA. Like they could play their local Boys and Girls Club football team. I bet I pick Boys and Girls Club. He'd be like, well, Randall. Like, no.
Oh my gosh.
I am not picking him. All right. So, okay. So we have Mississippi Valley State versus Murray State. Murray State. Okay, that's what I'm picking. Who you got?
Well, if you look at these teams, I don't know who is worse. I don't know who. Look, I don't know who to smack. I don't know who to like. They both suck. They're bad. They're so bad. Man, they look bad. Like on paper, they look terrible. But maybe in real life, they might be great. Sheesh, man. This is 7:00 game too. That's how bad. 7:00 game on ESPN Plus. Ain't nobody watching that game. That's how.
Oh my God! No, chill out.
That's how bad it is. Respectfully. Mississippi Valley State has never done nothing for me. Had people go there, really, really great campus, really great education. But I might be with you on Murray State. If they win, all power to them. I would love that for them. But Murray State.
All right. So Alabama A&M versus Georgetown. Arielle, this ain't Allen Iverson's Georgetown. This ain't John Thompson's Georgetown. All right. This ain't that Georgetown. This is a Georgetown in Kentucky.
Yeah. Like on the ESPN app, they're not even listed. There's no stats. There's no like it seems like they're just invisible. They're a made up team, but they're most definitely well, I guess because this is their first game of the season and you play Alabama A&M. That's not great. I'm going with Alabama A&M.
Alabama A&M is going to win. Okay. Listen, I understand that I'm not a Division I person. I went to Fort Valley State University, a Division II HBCU. Why is Alabama A&M playing Georgetown, Kentucky? Why? Cardinal Manor is padding his stats to try to get him a contract decision. This ain't it, Coach Manor. This is not it. Play the actual Georgetown. Okay, and I'm sorry, Georgetown College. And I love NAIA. Listen, but Alabama A&M supposed to be contending for the SWAC championship, and this might be a void if FAMU maybe loses to somebody. They might lose to Jackson State or something like that. You want to make sure that you might can get in where you fit in again, getting that SWAC championship against the other division champion. You're playing Georgetown College. This better be a money game for them. This better be a money game for Georgetown College. Because come on, man, come on. You better be cutting them a check because no. All right. So Edward Waters versus Alcorn. Edward Waters is Division II. I'll go first here. Edward Waters hadn't been looking good. We talked about Morehouse. Mm-hmm. They sort of struggled against Morehouse. They ultimately won that game, but they struggled against Morehouse. We talked about NAIA. Florida Memorial was actually really good NAIA school. They lost to Florida Memorial last week. Now, Edward Waters quarterback I think ultimately got injured in that game, but they lost to Florida Memorial. This is not the Edward Waters that was led by Jaron Russell, who upset Tuskegee. They upset Albany State, almost upset Fort Valley. Those are your three blue bloods in the SIAC, right? And Edward Waters, they just officially became a Division II member from the NAIA. So, like, I'm happy for them, proud of them. I think that last year's Edward Waters would have possibly given Alcorn a run for their money, possibly, and maybe scared them. But I don't think this year's Edward Waters does that, because I think they have to find who their QB is outside of John Russell, because he's gone now. And then, you have some teams that took away some key pieces of that team. They got some great pieces. Even got a Fort Valley player that's doing very well for them. That's running back. But I don't think that they beat Alcorn, not this year. If this was last year, I would say Edward Waters. But I think Alcorn wins this game.
Edward Waters shouldn't be slept on either. And this one, I'm kind of a little torn, because I personally think Edward Waters would beat Alcorn. I'm not seeing anything that gives me.
They're not.
But
they're not. Yeah,
am I going to risk my pick on an injured quarterback and then Alcorn State? That's my thing.
I'm not gonna risk my pick. I'm not glad to see.
That is my thing right now. I would hate to be wrong, because something in me, it's saying Edward Waters. But I don't know if that's the spirit of Jesus saying Edward Waters. You got to listen to the spirit. I don't want to feel like I'm like a copycat, but just, safety purposes, I'm going to say Alcorn. I need to protect my pick.
If you're right, you're right. Like, listen, we were both 15-5. Listen, I'm fine with that. Okay. When we get the same record, I'm fine with that. Okay.
At the end of the day, I guess it's gonna be Alcorn. I guess we can say Alcorn.
All right. Last game, North Carolina A&T versus Delaware. I'll let you pick first. You have the A&T out on the day, and the A&T pain that is always in the background. So who you got?
Y'all see that right there. Personally, I don't like the performance of last weekend. Was not feeling it, even though it was against Winston-Salem State. Shout out to them. Love that for you guys, for putting up a fight. But against Delaware, if A&T is having those kind of struggles to even run up the ball or even create some kind of separation with the team that's not even respectfully on their level, I don't have high hopes for them against Delaware.
Yeah. North Carolina A&T, that game against Winston-Salem, we got to put respect as an HBCU community. I will continue to say this on Division II football, especially when we're talking about these rivalry matchups, because it's different, because you have teams that they play their best against their rivals. And I think that A&T, because of the success of A&T and the recent football history of A&T, y'all didn't think Winston-Salem State was like a threat. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I honestly believe that when we look at it ultimately, I think that North Carolina A&T is going to get beat down by Delaware. They are a future Division II, not Division II. They are Delaware is a future FBS team. They already are moving up. They already got their papers. I think this might be their last year in the FCS. So they're going to be joining the Sun Belt. Like, they're going to be an FBS program. They are itching to get up to the FBS, and they are going to beat down North Carolina A&T along the way. And it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. And I don't understand why with football, you have a team that'll do good one week, because they did pretty good against Wake Forest. Then the next week they in an overtime game. Like, I don't like, and they lost to Wake Forest, but like, they lost in like such a good way. It's college football. When you lose, people are moral victories don't exist in sports. Yes, they do. They do exist, because like that, like those running backs looked amazing. The offense looked proficient. Then you get to Winston-Salem, and like they almost lost to Winston-Salem, and it would have brought me joy if Winston-Salem had won as a Division II program. But I just, Arielle, I'm also picking Delaware. That's it for today. Arielle, my gosh. This like I just A&T being bad is like depressing. Oh my gosh. Anyway, Arielle. Come on, man. Like get up. You know what I'm saying? Like just,
listen, that was a really bad note. That was wow. Okay. Yeah. Let's not end with that next time.
We got A&T beat me the first game picked, I guess. If we're gonna get about the way,
Yeah, don't want to get the view something sad to think about, bro. That we really went deep there. Let's end this.
But listen, if it's a North Carolina Central fan, they like yes, like they like.
We knew it this whole time. We were just waiting. Y'all was waiting for us to get out the conference so y'all could be great. That's another conversation. That's another conversation. But it's cool. It's cool.
That's cold. That's cold. Well, you know what? You better show them by coming back. You better show them. You be like, you know what? you better show them. Like at this point, you be like, listen, open arms. We could welcome back with open arms. But trust me, I understand. Listen. I totally understand. It's other sports that play. It ain't just football. So I totally get it. But Arielle, where can we find you on social media?
Oh, you can find me morning on the A&T page on social media at with my username __.modernday Ari. Put me in the hot seat if you want to. I'm all for the smoke on X, formerly known as Twitter, at AskRiri __. Oh, go check out my new website, arielkilgore.canva.com.
I love it. You listen to HBCU Pulse Radio.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.